Hey everyone, my name is Robert, and I'm joined today by Stirling Cooper. How are you doing today, Stirling Cooper?
I'm good, Robert. I'm doing all right. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Same here. And today we're going to talk to you about how to dominate your woman in the bed and also how to build your mindsets for that. But before we go into the show, Sterling, why don't you tell our audience who you are and what you do, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So, if anybody recognizes me, there's one of two ways you might recognize me. The first one is that I am an award-winning adult film star. I've been in the adult entertainment industry for, in one context or another, for at least the last 8 years. Prior to that, prior to being on films, I worked as a high-class male companion servicing wealthy business ladies back in Australia. Did that for a number of years. And prior to that, I was in the swinging scene, actually, as a single guy. I managed to finagle my way into that, which is not an easy thing to do. Mm-hmm. And today, I sort of pull that kind of experience, the varied experience, I should say, professionally laying pipe, and I teach dudes how to, as you suggested, how to dominate their partner in the bedroom, how to be more confident in the bedroom, how to avoid, these sort of performance issues that a lot of guys come across, like performance anxiety, erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation. I help guys overcome those issues, and we help dudes get back on track. And my kind of motto these days is to express. I'm trying to teach guys to express unapologetic masculinity through bedroom mastery. That's kind of my goal right with all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, it sounds interesting. Well, I mean, it seems like you have the experience to do that, right? So sounds like right up your alley. So, how did you, end up? What made you want to just help guys out with all the stuff that from all the experiences you have? What was it that kind of motivated you to do that?
Well, it started off with just guys sending me emails, sending me DMs in like Instagram, Twitter, whatever. That's kind of where it started, and then the whole thing kind of kicked off because I was a fan of the Rational Male series of books, a fan of Rollo Tomasi, my good friend, and the whole OnlyFans thing was kind of kicking off at the beginning of last year because of the lockdown situations all over the world. So a lot of girls went onto OnlyFans. OnlyFans started to blow up, right? And now OnlyFans which is a weird thing. OnlyFans has become like a household word now. Like, it's so ridiculous to me that because OnlyFans was started by my industry. OnlyFans was started by the adult entertainment industry, right?
Oh, really?
And it's been around for it's been around since 2017. I want to say 2016, maybe. It's been around for a while. It wasn't just a brand new thing because the adult industry built it up, right? Okay. And then all of a sudden, lockdown hits, and every woman in the Western world who's moderate. Not even good looking, but moderately good looking. It's just like, all right, I'm going to make some money off Sims. And so they all create an OnlyFans account. So that was blowing up at the beginning of last year. And Rollo was talking about it a lot. So I reached out to him by email. I said, hey, man, fan of your work. I'm a fan of your concepts. I am in this industry. I'd love to come on your show and talk about, the psychology behind OnlyFans and all this sort of stuff from a perspective of somebody inside the industry. So, and that's kind of how we kicked things off. And then I met him, and I met John from Modern Life Dating, and he was the one who convinced me to kind of start my own channel. And he invited me onto his some of his coaching programs where I got my first sort of taste at mentoring guys. So basically, I was just like, all right, I can help you in the bedroom, I guess. And then I started fielding all these questions, and I got an idea of what problems guys are having, and then I just started getting practice at sort of helping dudes overcome it. And then that's where the sort of YouTube channel came about. And and now that's what my YouTube channel focuses on mainly, is predominantly putting out as much free content as I can to help guys overcome all of these issues in the bedroom.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's very interesting. It's interesting how we wind up, using our knowledge and life experiences to help others. Because we've been there and done that, and we want to, help the guys become stronger individuals and dominant in the bedroom. So, what would you say, are some of the common mindsets, though, for people who are afraid to be dominant in the bedroom or have, have lack of sexual confidence? Because that is very important if you want to be able to, have, great sex with a lady, and plus turn the lady on great, do her, have sex with her very good to the point where she's coming back and seeing you again, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the bedroom's this thing. It's a tool, right? I see Affy in the chat here. You guys don't know shit. Good to see you, my man.
That's what I thought.
It's like the bedroom's this tool for like, I describe it as like a retention tool in terms of relationships, in terms of, you know, meeting and keeping women in your life. Like if you've got the bedroom stuff handled, they want to keep coming back, right? So that's why it's important. And a lot of guys, they lack this, for want of a better word, sexual confidence, or just confidence in the bedroom in general. And it comes from a lot of places that are kind of misguided and misplaced. Like a lot of dudes will get, you know, kind of anxious about like the size of their dick because they sit around watching porn all day and they think every dude has to have like an enormous fucking foot long, which is not the case. Like, I'm not even that long and I'm able to do this as a career. You know what I mean? That's kind of give you an idea of like of the reality of things. And so first of all, guys get self-conscious about that. They get self-conscious about like being able to please their partner, which is, it's just kind of a, I don't use the word sad thing, but it's an eye-opening thing that there's guys put a lot of pressure on themselves. Guys put so much pressure on themselves to be this sort of all-encompassing partner for their woman. You know?
Do you think that's because they want to please the woman more than themselves, and that's why they're putting all that pressure on themselves?
I think a large part of that is, yeah. I think it's this idea of I must please her to keep her coming back. It comes from a place of neediness. It comes from a lack of options. Unfortunately, it comes from a lot of the stuff stems from the same place mentally. So they need her to like them. They need to please her. Otherwise, she couldn't like that. That's a scarcity mindset in and of itself. Like this woman wouldn't unless you gave her like, you know, rock and roll level sex. She wouldn't possibly come back. That is a scarcity mindset, right? To think that there's nothing about you that she doesn't want to come back for. It's nothing at all. Like it's only the dick. Like that's it. I mean, that's kind of my primary tool. Even I know that's not, you know, the be all and end all. Even I know that a girl is sticking around for more than that. You know, so there's that. It's like this need to please and to compare themselves to like her past lovers, to compare themselves to like the other guys that she has slept with or might sleep with. It's like, I hope I'm as good as her last boyfriend. I hope I can please her as well as her last boyfriend or whatever it is. And these things all really play with a guy's head. They fuck a guy. They lead to sexual, like a lack of confidence in the bedroom, which is never a good thing. But they also can cascade into a variety of other problems like performance anxiety, like erectile dysfunction. So it starts with a seed. All these kind of problems that guys have in the bedroom, a lot of them are mental. A lot of them come down to, or at least have a giant part of them has a mental component. Yeah,
because that does affect how, I hear you on that.
So if you let these sort of niggling thoughts, these niggling doubts, this neediness, all this sort of scarcity mindset really just manifest too much, it can cascade into these bigger issues. And then you've got a whole lot of work to undo all this stuff. So it's better if you start off from, especially if, you know, if you're watching this and you've never had these problems before, that's fantastic. Let's prevent them. Or if you're watching this and you might have just started to have some of these issues, you got to start at the very beginning. I try to tell guys all the time, like a lot of dudes the first thing they'll do is they'll reach for a little blue pill. They'll reach for Viagra or something, right?
Okay.
That's their first resort, and that's their first and only option for the large majority of guys, because they think, oh, I'm having trouble in the bedroom. I'm not a stud like I was when I was, you know, a teenager. I'm, you know, if they're a bit older or whatever, and they think, okay, this little blue pill is the be all and end all. It's a Band-Aid solution. You know, it's the thing that guys don't understand about something like Viagra, right? Viagra or Cialis, all these sort of boner pills, right? Is that they don't actually give you a boner. They just keep it there for longer. It enhances it. It keeps it there for a longer length of time. So if you have, you know, these kind of hang-ups, these sexual confidence issues, and you have like performance anxiety, right? Even if, like, sometimes it will still work. Sometimes a guy will take a little blue pill, and it's actually not even the pill that's helping. It's totally a placebo effect.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that it's the confidence they get from having the pill that gets rid of their performance anxiety, right?
Right.
But sometimes guys will take the blue pill, and it doesn't do a goddamn thing because they're still nervous, they're still self-conscious, they're still, they're still in that scarcity mindset, they're still in that needy, desperate mindset, and they're like, "Why the hell isn't this working?"
Mm-hmm.
And then they come to me, and
Yeah,
I'm like,
right.
"Well, the problem was was at the very beginning. The problem is your mental frame of mind. So we gotta fix that shit first, because otherwise you're just going to be constantly putting band-aids over the solution for forever and ever."
Yeah, no, I hear you. So this is pretty much a variety. It's like a mental thing. So it can just be like to wanting to please the girl. Or have you ever come across people who don't believe that they you shouldn't be dominant in the bedroom? Have you had guys like that? Maybe, because they don't want to. Maybe they do want to be dominant with the girl, but they're worried that the girl doesn't want to be dominant. Yet not having understanding of women like sex just as much as guys do.
It's more that the latter, that what you just said. It's more the last thing you just described. It's more a case of guys thinking that women don't like that more so than them. I mean, I do get the occasional guy who doesn't feel like it's in his nature to be dominant. I do get a couple of guys. I mean, I'm literally like a handful of guys who want to be kind of like lifestyle submissives. That's an entirely kind of different thing.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, for most men, I think it's most practical for most men is to adopt this dominant frame in the bedroom, this dominant position in the bedroom. And once it only takes like one or two things, a couple of little reference experiences of a woman positively responding to the things that I teach guys, and I'll give an example of a couple of things here.
Okay.
It only takes a couple of like one or two experiences of seeing, oh, I did this thing, and her eyes lit up, and she was smiling from ear to ear. That's all it takes for a guy to be like, oh shit, yeah, okay, this stuff really does work. Women really do like this. Women do really respond well to being dominated in the bedroom. And when I say dominated in the bedroom, guy, I'm not talking about like hanging a girl up from the rafters, like tying her up, like beating the crap out of her.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
You can go to that end. I'm not saying you can't. You can totally go that far if you want to. But when I'm talking about I look at it like dominance is like a spectrum, right? One end of the spectrum is that stuff, is like hanging up from the rafters, like chains and floggers and electrical stimulation, all kinds of crazy shit, right? And then the other end is like vanilla sex. And I try to get guys to babysit themselves a little bit closer to this end. They don't have to go all this way, but a little bit, like maybe go like halfway or like at least a quarter of the way somewhere, so that you're, because you might not be a super, super kinky, dirty, perverted guy like me. That is totally fine. You can still be a good lover. You can still be good in the bedroom without being into all these kind of kinky, perverted things.
Yeah.
It's more to do with the frame of mind, or not frame of mind, but the dynamic that you and her have in the bedroom. It's more down to that, right? And I believe that is the correct frame. The correct dynamic is one of the man being dominant and the woman being submissive.
Mm-hmm.
And so
now, I got to ask you something. So say you're going to be the dominant guy and have the woman be submissive. Now, being the guy, you're going to have to take charge of that too. You're going to have to lead the woman into that interaction based off your actions, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That's a large part of it is leading her through the sexual experience. That's how I describe it. You're leading her through every step of the way. So it's less about, one of the biggest things that has screwed over a lot of men today is this kind of what's the word I want to use for it? Like the rape culture mythos, like this idea that like you have to ask for consent every step of the way. This idea that consent is sexy, and like anything other than verbal enthusiastic consent is a total no. And it's like anybody who had sex prior to like 2010 knows from personal experience that is just not the case. That is not how men and women interact with each other. Your grandparents weren't like that. Your parents weren't like that. Your grandparents weren't like that. Your great grandparents weren't like that. It wasn't a case of like, okay, honey, let's sit down and go over a checklist of everything that you're into and everything that I'm into, and we make sure we don't cross any boundaries, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't work like that. And it's not like, in the bedroom either. It's not like a guy is, he goes to touch her. He's like, can I touch you on the arm? Yes, you can touch me on the arm. Okay, can I touch your thigh? Yes, I can touch your thigh. Can I kiss you? Yes, I can. Yes, you can kiss me. This doesn't happen. Like, this is not how real sex happens.
No, it doesn't.
But if you listen, too. Right? But if you listened to like the all this sort of feminist propaganda that guys are being sort of bombarded with, especially younger dudes, man, I can't imagine how stressful it would be to be a younger dude in this sort of Me Too era. To think, trying to learn how to escalate sexually on a woman, right? Learn how to take something from being, from like a date to like a sexual interaction. So like, okay, well, how do I do this if I'm like the big bad guy and everything I do is wrong, and any sort of sexual advancement is quote unquote, sexual assault? It's like, what the hell do I do? And so I sort of reinforce this idea to guys that you have to lead this sexual interaction. Like, so it doesn't. I teach guys how to read a woman's body language, so that, because that's what they want. Women want a guy who quote unquote just gets it, right? And especially in the bedroom, like the idea of you stopping and every step of the way during sex and asking a woman, "Oh, can I do this? Can I do that? Or are you into this? Are you into that?" Every step of the way is like, nothing is going to dry a woman's vagina up faster than that.
No, I agree.
Because what does that really communicate to her? Let's break this down for a second. It communicates a lack of confidence. It communicates nervousness. It communicates that you don't know what you're doing. It communicates a lack of experience, which means it communicates a lack of options and a lack of pre-selection. So it's extremely unattractive. So what a woman wants, like I said, is a guy who just gets it. So one of the ways you can just get it is by learning. Pardon me, I'm being all burpy from my C4. One of the ways you can just get it as a guy is to learn to read her body language, learn to read these non-verbal cues of basically consent, these non-verbal cues of I'm into this.
Yes, and I kind of like to read it. Another thing too is the body language is really good, but I also I normally get a feel with the vibe I have with the lady too. I can just get a feeling based off the vibe we're having during the interaction when we're together. Like it's just the conversation stuff, and and I'll flirt it, and I'll throw in some flirts and the conversation, see how the ladies engage or not. And if, I kind of calibrate it off that way too. But I definitely agree. Body language is really important too, because you can tell certain gestures that the lady's having, and you can tell that she's into you.
So let's give like a couple of practical examples. So like I mentioned, like you want to be the guy who's leading the sexual interaction. Okay, so what's a practical example of that? Well, for a lot of dudes, this is actually something that's takes a bit of balls to do this. But if you're, say, making out with a girl, you bring a girl home from a date, you're making out, things are getting kind of hot and heavy. You're getting handsy on her, she's getting handsy back on you. That's important. Like that's an example of a body language cue you might read. If you're making out with a girl and her hands are like on you, touching you, sort of groping you, right? Then okay, that's a good signal. Right? It's a green light. Things are good. Okay. So what you might do to escalate things towards sex a little bit more there is something as simple as grabbing her hand and putting it on your junk. Especially if you've got a boner, then like grabbing her hand and putting it on your boner, like out on the outside of your pants, right? Mm-hmm. What does that communicate? It communicates that like you're leading. It's like, because what are even in this day and age, right? Women still, as promiscuous as modern women are, they still don't like to be perceived as a slut. This is still somewhat like of a faux pas. They still want to present that idea of like, not chastity exactly, but that idea of kind of innocence to a degree. So her making that move is still kind of rare in today's day and age. Like the girl like physically sexually escalating on the guy, unless he's like a fucking minor celebrity or some shit. Like if he's a regular guy like you and me, then okay, that's the dude's job, is to escalate things. So taking her hand, putting it on your boner, that communicates, okay, we're going in a sexual direction, and you've alleviated the pressure off of her. This is actually an interesting example because you're Like, she's technically escalating on you because her hand's on your dick, but you've given her the permission to do it. Like, you've done it for her. You know what I mean? So you've led her there. You've taken control of the interaction. It's your fault, your responsibility, right? In a good way. So she doesn't have to feel that burden of responsibility, and she doesn't have to feel like a slut or anything. You've done it. It's just magically happened now. And if she's into it, if things can keep going in this direction, all she has to do is just give it a squeeze here and there, and you're like, all right, cool. This is another green light. We can keep moving. Like, it's very, very easy for her to give you a non-verbal cue then of, I want this thing to keep escalating in a sexual direction. If she doesn't, then she just takes her hand off, and you're like, okay, cool. That's and you don't push it any further. It's like, okay, it gives you the feedback you need without having to verbalize it. Because if you verbalize it, it's unattractive. It's so retarded, I know. Like, breaking it down like this as a guy, it's absolutely stupid. But if you verbalize it, then it immediately gets rid of the magic. It immediately makes it unattractive, because then you're immediately the guy who doesn't get it.
Yeah, it's not spontaneous too, you know. Like, you're caught up in the moment and shit. And when you, like, again, communicating that stuff, that kind of breaks it. This again, it kills interaction. Like, you got to go.
And another. So that's just one example of like what I would, kind of leading, right? And that is, leading in general is being dominant. Like, being dominant, like I said, isn't this thing where you have to tie a girl up from the rafters and beat her up or whatever. Being dominant is a few basic things. It's so you can lead the interaction, right? So as in decide what direction we're going in, right? Or what things we're going to do. That is just a basic form of leading, which is basic form of domination. Okay. You can be verbally dominant, as in you can tell her what to do. Rather than asking her what she wants to do or asking her permission for things, telling her what to do is dominant. It's also leading, but it's the verbal form of it, right?
Correct.
I think of leading as like, okay, like it's like the thought process of like, all right, I want us to do this thing next, or we're going to go to the bedroom. We're going to make out on the kitchen counter. That's the leading part, right? And the verbal part is telling her what to do, right? So maybe like you might tell her to go to the bedroom, or you might tell her to undo your belt buckle, or whatever it is. Like, you're telling her what to do. That's a verbal side of domination, right? And that can escalate towards dirty talk, and it can escalate towards more sort of more verbal stuff. If you want to go in that direction, that's fine. Then you have being physically dominant over her. That's just, in a basic way, like showing your physicality and showing that you are stronger than her. And this is an important one, I believe, because for a woman to feel safe with a man, like, a woman doesn't feel safe with a guy that she can beat up. Right?
Right.
You think let's be honest here. Let's think about this. Like, a woman can't really, if a woman can beat up her man, she can't feel safe around him because he can't protect her. I'm not telling guys to beat women up. I'm not saying this because there's going to be some idiot watch this and misinterpret what I'm saying. So I'm not saying that. But you have to be able to demonstrate that you are physically stronger than her, right, in a safe way. And the bedroom is kind of the realm that you can kind of demonstrate that. And so if you can demonstrate you're physically dominant over her, you're physically stronger than her, it demonstrates, that you have the capacity to protect her. You have the strength to protect her, look after her. And this is all deep-seated, like, evolutionary psychological stuff. Like, this goes back to the caveman days. Like, why would being stronger than her be important? Well, if she gets pregnant, and she's a pregnant woman is an extremely vulnerable human being, and like, she needs a man to protect her. In like, maybe in the modern day she doesn't, but our brains haven't evolved from 2021. Our brains evolved thousands of years ago, when we're like walking around on the plains of Africa and there's lions and tigers and shit. Well, not tigers, but lions. There's lions running around. Pregnant woman walking around on her own is going to die. That is the case of it. So she needs a man there to protect her. So
she's dominant,
exactly. Being physically stronger than her is a way of demonstrating that dominance, a way of demonstrating that she is safe with you. Ironically, it's a bit counterintuitive, but that's the truth of it. So one of the ways I teach a lot of guys to express that or to show that physical dominance. And this is a really, really simple thing any guy can do. And again, I lump this in this sort of category of, on the more sort of tame vanilla end of things, but it's something that any guy can do. Any guy should be comfortable enough to be able to do this thing, right? So in missionary position, she's laying down in front of you. Just do something as simple as pinning her hands here alongside of her. You don't have to pin them super hard. You don't have to do it super, super rough or if she wants to, move her hands, let her move her hands or whatever. But something as simple as taking her wrists and pinning them by her side like that whilst during the act of sex, right? Mm-hmm. Staring at whilst, making out with her or looking at her, keeping good eye contact. Something as simple as that, like that one little thing. I tell guys to do this, and I tell them what's going to happen. I tell them, you do that for the first time with a woman or with your woman or whatever, and you watch her eyes light up. She'll get this glow in her eyes and this smile across her face, woo, excited, giddy, like that kind of smile.
She's completely away.
Lo and behold, it's nothing spectacular, but it's in her mind, a little bit of this little tweak is oh, he's taking control. Oh, he's dominant. He's being dominant. And lo and behold, I tell guys to do this, and they write me back in emails I did that thing, and yes, she got this smile on her face, and she loved it. Well, because I know what the fuck I'm talking about. But that's the idea. That's not. And like I said, if she wants to move her hands, let her move her hands. It's not a be all and end all. If she doesn't like it, you're done for. And if she does like it, then you can do anything you want to it. It's not like that. It is obviously still consent, and there's obviously still reading the body language the whole way through. But that's a great place for guys to start, is just putting hands down like that in missionary position. It's establishing physical dominance over the woman, showing physical dominance over the woman. And then you can, and like I said at the very beginning of this talk, I said, a lot of guys, all they need is one or two positive reference experience to sort of reinforce this idea, and then they buy into it. Mm-hmm. So that's why that's one of the first ones I teach guys, because it's very, very easy. Every dude can do it, and it's gonna get a positive result 90% of the time.
Okay.
Right? Probably even higher than that, 99% of the time. But if you do it in a calibrated, non-creepy way when you can read her body language, right?
Right.
So if a guy hasn't quite bought into this idea of being dominant in the bedroom, and then he does that, and he sees the positive response, he's like, maybe women do like this stuff. Because, like you said at the beginning, you said a lot of guys might think that women aren't into this.
Right.
And I would shatter that idea again by pointing at some pop culture references, like 50 Shades of Grey is one that everyone tends to know.
Yep, everyone's familiar with that one, yep.
Everyone's familiar with that. There was 365 D&I, which was a Netflix series that came out last year. And then now we've got this other one that's out this year. What was it called? I think it's called...
Is that the Netflix one you're talking about?
Yeah, what is it? It's
oh man, I can't. I know what you're talking about.
Sex Life. Sex
Life, yeah.
I don't watch these trash shows, but I've just heard of them, so that's why I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. That's why I don't know what it is. But I'm aware of what's in the show. That's all I need. That's all I need to know. I'm not going to waste my time watching the damn thing. But the fact that these exist and that these are popular, especially among women, these are clear-cut signs, guys, that what I'm saying is absolutely verifiably true.
Now,
women do want this more in the bedroom.
When women do watch those shows, and they're like 50 Shades of Grey or Sex Life, do they fantasize about that too happening to them? If that's something they I know every woman are probably different about, but they fantasize that, I want that done to me, and most guys probably don't know that.
Well, it's odd. It's there's been a few studies done, and there was, I believe it was something like 70% of women had reported at some point in their life that they wanted to be tied up, that bondage was a fantasy of theirs. So it was something like 70% of women had reported that as a fantasy. So that gives you one example of how prevalent this kind of thing is. And I'm kind of the opinion that maybe our ancestors were freaky. I don't know. Maybe they weren't. There's no real way of knowing. But there's one thing for certain, and that's that modern modern humans, and especially modern women, are kinky as hell. That is verifiably true. And I personally think that this is a result of, like, it's like a natural response to there being a lack of masculinity in our everyday society. So when you think, the way I break it down is like, if women crave that masculine energy in their life. They crave that polarity. They want to be feminine, but they need the masculinity around them to make them feminine. It's a polarity thing. Otherwise, like, the less masculine a guy is, the more masculine the less feminine she can be. You know? And so you end up in this place which modern society tries to push us to right now, which is we're all equal and we're all exactly the same, and men and women are the same. No, they're not. They're absolutely not. This is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. So society tries to push us here. What we need to be doing is doing more of this, creating that polarity between the two of us.
Okay.
Right? And so I believe that this sort of, when you see women becoming more kinky and more perverted and wanting to indulge in these more perverted, more dominant fantasies, say, for example, like BDSM and things that are even more extreme beyond that matter, I think that's a natural response to them having a lack of masculinity in their everyday life. They don't get that in their everyday life, like, they're the boss, they're the Karen who's a manager at their office, or they're in charge of, they're some high-powered CEO, they're in charge of stuff, or they're bossing men around in their everyday life, and every dude they interact with is a pussy, or every dude they interact with is not masculine. And society in general is feminine. Society as a whole is feminine. So there's this gaping void in her life, which needs masculine energy to plug it. So where's she going to find it? The only place that it's acceptable in modern society to be masculine anymore, to be dominant anymore, is in the bedroom. So of course that's naturally where she's trying to find it, and so she's going to try to indulge in more and more extreme sex acts, and that's kind of my hypothesis at the moment.
Okay, that is a very interesting hypothesis. That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah. Maybe it's not a good way of looking at it, but maybe it's a bit too perverted way of looking at it. It's a way of looking at it. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, no, it's a good, interesting observation, though. I was like completely kind of caught up in that observation there. But no, I can see what you're talking about, though, because of the lack of like masculinity, that could kind of have women craving that in the bedroom and stuff.
Yeah, and I think that when guys start to kind of adopt this more dominant frame of mind in the bedroom, that especially if it's in the context of a long-term relationship or a marriage, when they start to adopt this mentality again, or maybe they adopted it for the first time, it will naturally start to fix and correct the dynamic in their everyday relationship. So it's kind of the one place that you can do it where it's acceptable, where it's socially acceptable, but it's also kind of a bit more of a covert way of doing it with your partner in the relationship. So because women like it, they're receptive to it. Like, women enjoy that dominant masculine energy in the bedroom. So okay, let's say you're in a long-term relationship and the dynamic is kind of off. Like, she bosses you around she's not very feminine. You're not hyper masculine, whatever it might be, right? Okay, start introducing this kind of stuff, this more dominant play in the bedroom, and then over time, watch how the dynamic in your everyday life starts to change a little bit more. Watch how the dynamic in your everyday life starts to become a bit more of you being more masculine, her being more traditionally feminine, her adopting that more submissive role. Honest to God, I've had guys report this to me in DMs and emails and stuff, saying this, like, "Oh, I tried this stuff. My wife liked it. Now our relationship is getting back on track. The passion's back in our relationship. She's less naggy. She's less bitchy. Surprise, surprise. When you dick a woman down properly, she doesn't nag, and the relationship dynamic starts to fix itself. But you can't. But it's like." You can try to like brute force that in the everyday interactions with women, in your everyday interaction with your partner. You could try that, but women are stubborn. Like, it's not going to be as easy. And she's got like this feminist narrative sort of supporting her in the background of like, oh, he tried to get me to cook and clean. He's a misogynist. That's bad, right? But if you come into the bedroom and be more dominant and get her to act and make her adopt her submissive role, she accepts it in the bedroom because it's pleasurable and fun and enjoyable for her.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just a case of like, was a word I'm looking for, but it's like, the more you do something, the more you're likely to continue doing it.
Oh, I know what you're talking about too. Well, I'm trying to.
Anyway, I'm sure people will understand what I'm talking about. But
okay.
So the more she starts to adopt this submissive frame of mind in the bedroom, then the more she is likely to be receptive to that and naturally just fit into that role in her everyday life as well.
Mm-hmm.
These two things kind of go hand in hand. So that's why I'm very adamant this is a great way to sort of try and reintroduce masculinity back into our society, is having dudes learning how to fuck properly, having dudes like laying pipe properly, having dudes being more dominant in the bedroom. We might actually start to see a slight masculine revival, thanks to my, hopefully through my teachings. That's my goal. Anyway.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting. No, so I was gonna, just going back to the beginning here, just to like the mindset thing I want to talk about again. So like, say you're working with someone and like they have a hard time developing that mindset. Like what is it you do to kind of push them through that? Because I know like a lot of men probably want to be more dominant in the bedroom and everything, and yet they have they have the mindset that they can do. They've had that for a while. You know what I'm saying? So how do you help them just push? I know you mentioned some of the exercises, but like, is there any other things you have psychologically or something like affirmations or something you might do for that, or do you just do real world stuff?
I just sort of try to tell guys, look, here's the underlying reason why this works. Like I mentioned before, like it's a psychological thing. It's a deep-seated evolutionary thing. There's a reason why she wants you to be this way. There's a reason why she will respond well to this. Go out, try these things that are within your comfort zone. These one or two things that you can do that are within your comfort zone to start with.
Yeah.
Get that positive feedback, and then you'll be more inclined to keep pushing. You'll be more inclined to baby step your own way towards wherever you want to go. To maybe you want to be even more dominant. Maybe you're happy where you are with these one or two things. But I don't think I can tell a guy like say these magical words to yourself.
No, I know that.
I do agree. I do like. I'm not trying to shit on affirmations. I do believe in the power of affirmations.
Okay.
Self-talk is very, very important, but without real world action, it's useless. You have to act. You have to actually do things.
Right.
That's well, thank you very much, Patricia. Thank you very much. Very glad to hear it. But you have. I mean, I could sit there and say, sit there and give a guy affirmations to think he's like a sexual, he's a Greek god, or he's like a sexual Lothario. But when he gets to the bedroom, he'll go into the bedroom he could go into the bedroom then with a lot of confidence, and that's great. And confidence will get you very far.
Mm-hmm.
But practically, what he's doing isn't necessarily any better than what another guy's doing, because he might just be pounding her out in missionary for like 10 minutes. Like, okay, like he thinks he's the shit, but what he's practically doing is not anything spectacular, right?
Right.
So if I give him a few more tools in his toolkit, okay, well, now he can start to be a bit more unique relative to her past sexual conquests. Now he can start to actually stand out in the bedroom. Now he can actually start to give her new sexual experiences, which no other guy has ever given her. And that's how he's going to stand out in her mind and kind of blueprint, like imprint on her. And right. For want of a better word, this word we throw around in the sort of men's self-help community called alpha widowing, which is the idea of like basically you like being the best she ever had. Mm-hmm. is that idea. And sex is probably one of the best ways to do that to a woman. Probably one of the best ways to come up to be the best she ever had mm-hmm. is by dicking her down properly.
Right. No, I was going to ask you too, because like I've noticed this too. Like when I was able to become more confident, just with even talking to ladies and kind of leading them outside the bedroom, I found like I got more comfortable doing that in the bedroom. Do you see that with a lot of your students too? Like maybe when they do that, they're more comfortable, like confident leading ladies in interactions, or have you seen them where they go vice versa, where they lead the interactions, they get more confident in the bedroom. Because that's how I, learned how to get, confidence that way too. And just through experience as well, kind of what we've all been talking about.
It's a two-way feedback loop. It goes both ways, I think. And so whichever one you're most confident with executing on first, do that. Like if you're more comfortable doing it, like for me, I was always more comfortable doing it in the bedroom than anywhere else. It just came more naturally to me. Good Oscar Wilde quote there, exactly. And okay, if you're more comfortable, leading women, in the outside world, be it on a date or however, in whatever context, then execute on that first. And then let that reinforce being that same kind of guy in the bedroom. But here's something to note, though, is if you are that guy outside the bedroom, if you're the guy who's leading and taking control, taking charge outside the bedroom, it's very incongruent for you to not be that way also in the bedroom. Okay? Because there's an expectation there. You've set a benchmark. You've set an expectation for her already of like, he takes charge, he's in control, he leads me through this through the world. He keeps me safe. Okay, and then you go into the bedroom and you just lay there like a starfish. She's gonna be like, "What the fuck's going on? This doesn't make any sense. This is weird, right?" So you got to understand that it's about congruency is important because one of the most unattractive things to a woman, one of the creepiest things to a woman is incongruency.
Yeah, and that's true.
Incongruency is the idea where like your thoughts. Or congruency, rather, is the idea that your thoughts, your words, and your actions are in perfect alignment with one another.
Right.
I think dominant thoughts. I say dominant things. I do dominant things. Right. But if you're, and obviously in all contexts. So once again, if I'm dominant with her in the outside world, but I'm submissive in the bedroom, it's a bit of a mind fuck.
Right.
Or I'm not even submissive in the bedroom, but if I'm confident and I know what I'm doing and I have no hesitation leading outside the bedroom, then when it comes to the bedroom, if I'm hesitant to lead, if I'm hesitant to make decisions, if I'm hesitant to tell her what to do, then the incongruency is obvious. So,
well, yeah, and you got to be congruent though, because I mean, like when you're incongruent, with what you're saying or what you're doing, I mean, that's gonna not make the lady trust you and make her feel uncomfortable around you. And so, no, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Now, one other thing, do you think? I don't know. Do you think dirty talk's a good thing, like to kind of get the dominance going, and maybe to like start, the flirting, test to see the waves where the lady's at with you? What do you think about that? What's your take?
Dirty talk is this thing that I only recently discovered its like real power. Like I was always good at dirty talk, but I never really used it as much as I could have. And I think honest to God, I think dirty talk is a tool that I'm going to be releasing a course on dirty talk later this year. Trying to encapsulate all these ideas I'm talking about, because I've learned a whole bunch of stuff recently that makes it even more powerful. But it's a way for you to get into the mind of a woman. And if you can get into the mind of a woman, if you can control a woman's mind, you have her soul. Like you could love, like when a woman falls in love with a man, it's done, up here. And primarily she does it to herself. Like if you really want a woman to be enamored with you, or if you want a woman to be absolutely obsessed with you, it all comes from the mind and how you can control and influence her mind. And dirty talk is, in my opinion, probably the most powerful tool, probably one of the easiest tools as well to learn to do that to a woman. Because when a woman, especially, and I'm not talking about dirty talk, because there's two types of dirty talk, right? There's dirty talk outside of the bedroom, so like say sexting, right? You can consider that to be dirty talk, right?
Right.
Like there's dirty talk that gets a woman prepared for sex. So sexting, or like when you're making out and you're dirty talking to her prior to like you sticking the penis into her. Like that is, in my opinion, that's like preparation for sex, dirty talk. And then there's dirty talk, which is like during the act of sex, you are inside of her, you are connected with her, and then you're dropping things into her mind with this dirty talk. That has the power to really influence a woman and to really like direct the course of your relationship with her, if you know what the hell you're doing. So Dirty talk is this whole. Dirty talk is like. Dirty talk is kind of like. It's weird to describe it this way now because, like I said, but there's a whole bunch of things I've learned about dirty talk recently that I wasn't consciously aware of what I was doing. Mm-hmm. So dirty talk is kind of like wielding a nuclear weapon without even realizing it. It's like if you can drop bombs if you know what the hell you're doing, but if you don't know what you're doing, you could screw things up as well.
Right. Exactly. And you're going to have to, if you want to have dirty talk with lady, you're going to have the confidence to have dirty talk. If you don't lack confidence and don't believe it's, going to be accessible, then it's going to come across as incongruent and creepy too.
Yes. I mean, a lot of guys dirty talk is actually something that I think guys are a bit more nervous about than anything. Mm-hmm. Like they're a bit more, they lack a bit of that is a kind of a test of a man's confidence, I think, to a large degree. And that is, a guy's ability to dirty talk. Oh, nice. Thank you, Patricia. He's dropping some of the stuff I teach, and it's obviously it works. The head's here in the chat verifying it. But
he's your number one fan, man.
Yeah, Patricia, I much appreciate it, my man. I really respect it. Thank you so much. So, yeah, like a lot of guys might not have the confidence to pull off dirty talk, or they might, because they get not confused, they get anxious about, like, what do I even say, right? Mm-hmm. What the hell do you even say? Because again, this comes back to congruence. Like, if you think, yeah, I'm the fucking man, but you're nervous about, or you're trying to come across as the man and try to say dominant things, but in your mind you're thinking, oh, I hope she likes this, or I don't know about this. I don't know if I can say this properly, and then you go to say, something like, who's daddy's naughty little slut, right? But you say it like, who's daddy's naughty little slut? You say it like a retard, then it's not gonna come across well, right? So you have to be able to deliver it well. So there's not only, so with dirty talk, there's not only like what you're saying, it's like the way you say it. It's also important,
right?
So as a bit of a cheat code for guys who want to learn how to, like just a really basic primer for dirty talk, I always tell dudes, look, just describe what's happening. That is an easy way. That's one category of sort of dirty talk I teach guys, and it's very easy for a dude to do. There's no thinking involved. Just describe what's going on. Just describe your sensations. Describe her sensations. That's really, really easy. Because it's like, like I love the way my dick feels in your mouth. I love the way I love the way your pussy feels around my dick. Whatever it is, I love the way you smell. I love the way you taste. Whatever it is, you're just describing what's happening in the moment.
You're not thinking about it. It's a lot easier because I think we all tend to overthink too. That's the other thing. Those guys just like overanalyze stuff, and that's where we get all confused. Yeah, I'm
of the opinion that it helps. Like, and this is with nearly everything. Not just the stuff I teach, but I think in general, I think it's best to give people like frames, but like rather than teaching people like, hey, say this thing verbatim or do this thing exactly, I like to give people like kind of a framework to operate in. And so that is an example of a framework. It's like, just rather than saying like this would be an example of an exact line, which would be like, I love the way your pussy feels around my dick. That's an exact line. So rather than telling guys, I could give guys like I could sit down and write out 100 different exact lines, and they'd have to try and remember them all and all that kind of shit. So instead of that, I tell, okay, here's the framework. Describe what's happening. That's the framework. Mm-hmm. So you can take that framework and apply it into any situation he's in, and then bang, he has something to say, right? Mm-hmm. And he's not thinking about it. He doesn't have to get creative with it. He doesn't have to think too much. So he, rather than focusing on like what to say, he can focus on how he's saying it. He can focus on, all right, say it with confidence, look her in the eye, say it with a deep tonality. Don't talk like this, or whatever. Like you're a prepubescent teenager. Like, say it with confidence because you're not worrying about what to say. So you take away the worrying aspect, and you're able to deliver it with more confidence. And so once a guy started doing that, okay, now he's had practice like doing that kind of dirty talk. Okay, well then we might start graduating to different stuff. We might start like throwing out more complex dirty talk, which requires him to like, now that he knows how to say, like now he's focused on his delivery, because he wasn't worrying about what he was saying before. He was just focusing, we've just made him focus on how to say it, like the delivery, like the tonality, the eye contact, all this sort of stuff. Okay, now he's got that down. Okay, now we can start working on like saying and doing more creative stuff, describing scenarios that like what I think in hypnosis you might call it like future pacing or like future adventure projection or whatever you might call it. Like so describing a fantasy to like while you're having sex with a girl, whispering in her ear the idea of a fantasy that you two might do together in the future.
Wow,
right?
Well, that's an interesting one. Yeah,
like that's something like I said, I'm a complete pervert. So one of the things that I personally like to do, like this is kind of a fantasy that most people don't even know how to describe, but it's the technical term for it is cuckwheating. So most guys these days are familiar with the term cuck.
Okay.
But that's in the terms of a cuckold is the dude being cucked. So like a cuckold is when like a dude is being cheated on by his missus, right?
Right.
I like to do the opposite, where I cheat on the girl and have her get off on me cheating on her.
Mm-hmm.
That is called cuckweening. So that's a technical term for it if anyone's curious.
Learning something new today. Interesting.
Yeah. So that's like a fantasy that I will play around with in her head. So I'll be having sex with her. She'll I don't know, doggy style or whatever so I can whisper in her ear, right? So I can be penetrating her, pulling her hair, and whispering in her at the same time, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll describe a fantasy of her watching me fuck another girl, right? And so I'm embedding this fantasy in her head of like me basically cheating on her, right? But her getting off on it, her fantasizing it, her eroticizing me fucking another girl. And so and it's not so in this, and like this is what I was saying before about this being kind of like a nuclear weapon. This is not only like a tool for getting her fired up and aroused during the act of sex. What I'm also doing there is I'm planting a seed for the future of our relationship together. I'm planting a very, very useful seed, which is going to allow me to have sex with other women very freely and have her involved in it in a fun, enjoyable threesome way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's layers to this shit. And
I didn't know there were so many layers to this. It's
yeah,
pretty crazy. Well, one last question then. This just came to mind. So, what happens if a guy comes across a dominant lady and she wants to be more dominant than the guy in the bed? Is there a way they can balance that out? Like you ever heard of anything like that, or had worked with someone like that? Where they
there's a couple of things here. So, is she like? Because there are women who are like professional doms, right? Mm-hmm, and I've had relationships with women before who have worked as professional dominatrixes.
Yes.
But when I come home to them, or when they come home to me, they're submissive to me. So it's like I hear this, and some guys want to be like. I've actually had a couple of clients who specifically wanted to be a submissive. The dude wanted to be a submissive, and he wanted to find a woman who was like a dominatrix kind of chick. Right. Okay, cool. I do know examples of relationships that work. I do know a few that actually work like that. But I would say that they're the rare exception to the general rule. So you look that it requires you to look for something very, very specific. Because women who get off on that is very rare, in my opinion. So in the situation you just described, where a woman is like wanting to be more dominant in the bedroom, a lot of that I think comes down to if it's just like, you know, a regular chick you kind of met at the bar and she's trying to like, I don't know, she's trying to do the same thing to you that I was teaching before. Maybe she's trying to pin your hands down, right? Let's just say that as an example in the bedroom. I look at that a lot of time as like a power play. I look at it as like, as a kind of like a shit test, really. Like she's testing to see like, will you let her dominate you, right? Right. And look, if it's just going to be a one night stand, whatever, cool. Like have fun with it. Like if you like it, then go ahead. If you don't like it, then don't let her do that. If you wanted to actually create something like more long term with this lady, I personally wouldn't let that dynamic fly. I would be stopping her, and I would be showing her that I like. If a woman tried to pin, let's say she's in cowgirl position, right, and she's trying to pin my hands down, I would grab her hands and put them behind her own back. Right, and like pin her hands like this way. You know what I mean? Reestablishing the fact that no, young lady, I'm in charge here. Don't be silly, like that kind of shit. Right. But then again, if a woman's trying to do that with me, like in bedroom, she's probably not the kind of girl I want to have a long-term thing with, because I like submissive feminine women. I don't like girls who are super bratty and trying to combat me all the time. I think that's a very Western thing. Right. You know, you don't see that very much with Eastern European women, with Asian women. You don't really see that very much. So this is a phenomenon pretty much exclusive to the Western woman, in my opinion.
Okay. No, it just came to mind. You know, I remember one time I was, just having in bed with a chick, and she got disappointed because she's like, I like to be the dominant girl. I'm like, well, I don't know. It's weird because before I don't know, I used to kind of enjoy this kind of being lazy, but just like I learned this, I like the dominance, man, because I think it really intensifies the experience for both the guy and the lady.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, it's like it's work. I'm not gonna lie, it's work. It's I look at like sex for a lot of these guys run around. I mean, maybe it's just me. Guys run around and think like having fun with sex. Yeah, I have fun with sex, but sex is also work for me. Like I'm putting all the work. Like I'm doing all the work.
Yeah, right. No, I hear you.
And like that, and that kind of reinforces this mentality that I have, where like I do not look at sex as a reward for me. Sex is 100% a reward for her. Any woman who is smart enough to go to bed with me is winning because she gets this experience. It's a complete no-brainer. And this is an example of a really good mental frame to come from for guys, for anyone who's paying attention. But this is a really good frame of mind. It's like if a woman is smart enough to pick me, was smart enough to go to bed with me, she is going to have a great experience because I'm not a lazy lover. I'm the guy who's like gonna lay it down and show her what's what. And it's okay. Yeah, some other guys will be like lazy. I think you can be a bit more late. I think the beginning of a relationship, the first few times you have sex with a woman, you kind of have to like really lay it down like that, and then you can start to like chill out and let her please you a bit more. You can maybe lay down and get a head massage and get a blowjob or whatever, right?
Right.
That I think you have to start the relationship with showing her that you're the fucking man, so that then she gets to that frame of mind of like, oh god, this guy is like a real keeper. This guy's really rare. This guy's really like a very, very high value man, like top 10, top 5%. Like I can't find another dude like this. I want to keep him around, so I will please him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it sounds a bit it's a bit weird. Might sound a bit counterintuitive, but that's at least how I think of it.
Mm-hmm. No, it's very interesting. And yeah, any final thoughts here before we end the show? We're all rolling in on an hour, or did you give your final thoughts?
No, I reckon that's a good place to.
Okay, cool, man. So where can people find you? And thanks again for coming on to the show. Really appreciate it. I'd love to have you again. You had a lot to talk about. I just listened to you. I had some other ideas of shows that we can do in the future.
Oh, thank you, man. It's a pleasure to be. And the easiest place people can find me, if you're on YouTube right now, you just type in Stirling Cooper. Stirling spelled Stirling, and you'll find my channel. You'll find all my videos. I have a ton of free content to teach guys stuff about, like I said, getting better in the bedroom and overcoming bedroom performance issues. You can also go to stirlingcooper.com and you'll find the links to all my other social media there, like my Instagram, my Twitter, and you'll find the various books and courses that I have there that Patricio mentioned in the chat. You can find all that stuff there on my website.
Awesome, man. I'll put those links in the description when we're done here for like the social media stuff. And yes, guys, you can find me on my Instagram at Command Confidence. And I'm coming out with a book soon. So you can go to Command Your Confidence and you can get on my emailing list. And I got like a chapter that I'm doing for that. And I'm going to be I drop a few videos, a couple of days each week that, help you guys out here with, your success with dating, building your mindset and getting ahead in life. So yeah, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and we look forward to seeing you all again. And thank you very much for coming on again, Stirling.
You're welcome.